The Lincoln kids on a bridge up in Canada, they can balance and they can fly. Like their fathers before them.
You might have to tell me to stop because I wouldn't want to finish any of these songs.
I'm just trying to check that we are live. We are.
So,
hold on. The album is 53 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've got an hour. Just
yep. 7 minutes of chat. Let's get it done with, and let's just let the album play, shall we?
I like your thinking there, Eric.
Right. So for those who know this little show, will know that this is our weekly review of an album, that album. What show is this? Number 20?
I think this is number 20. Yeah.
Number 20. So Adam and I were having these little sort of like late night chats about music, and we decided to do a little live and just focus on one album. So it's funny, just to let people, hi Susan, just to let people know how this works. There's no collusion. We literally say the album at the end of each show and we go away and we don't speak. Adam and I work together, but we don't speak about this until now. So I don't know. Well, I do know because just before we came on air, he told me, but we never know if we're going to go, I really didn't like it, or I thought it was okay, or whatever. So I put my hand up last week and said, why don't we do Hejira by Joni Mitchell? How's your week been?
Well, not without its challenges. So I did enter with some trepidation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously you had put forward some albums that were from artists that I had heard of or knew, but not albums that I knew. So David Sylvian, Beautiful Trees, Brilliant Trees, sorry. I enjoyed, but I thought it was a sad letdown considering that Gone to Earth, his next album, was much better. OK Computer, you said, this is just a pivotal album. You have to, it's one of the best albums ever. And, I would rather have had Red Hot Needles stuck in my eyes. Yep. So when you said, let's do Joni Mitchell Hejira, particularly because clearly Joni Mitchell Blue is her best album. It's her most commercially successful album. It's an album which has got some great songs on it and embraces the style from the period for which her most famous songs come. So
correct.
Carrie, All I Want,
Case of You, all of that. Yeah.
Case of You, Big Yellow Taxi, all of that style. So this album comes on and I listen to it. I must have kind of misunderstood that a little bit. So I listened to it again and I can honestly say it was an epiphany for me. It was, so you said, this is a breathtakingly good album. I said, I'll give it a try. And it is indeed a breathtaking. I am completely bowled over. It's just, I'm a new man.
You're a new man.
I am a new man.
Oh, well, you've no idea. Sarah tells me that my role in life, and she said, you must understand this, is that you love being the person that shows someone something. You love that. And you love when people go, oh, this is really, really cool. You've no idea how great I feel right now.
Well, I'm
awesome.
Thrilled because this, what can I say? My life is now complete. I can die a happy man.
Oh my goodness. What, how would you sum up how Hejira, sort of like, why have you had this epiphany?
Well, I quite like jazz. I quite like Joni, or quite liked Joni. I like musical textures. I like brilliance of performance. I like songwriting that tells stories, so which is exactly why Oasis doesn't float my boat, because it's just word soup. This is different. This tells the story. You're with her, experiencing these things. It's just having it. That's my daughter. Yes, the transformative power of Joni Mitchell, and Madeleine is 20. She should be learning this stuff from me, not the other way around. This is just unbelievable. And I think what's really interesting is when we look back to when this was released in 1976, the world was a very different place. This kind of music washing over you, complexity of rhythms and musical textures, complexity of lyrics and poetic nature of the lyrics. You know, Leonard Cohen hadn't really got into his stride in that kind of poetic writing at this point. So this was real bleeding edge stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, so 1976, what was going on?
What was going on in 76, Adam?
Well, the summer. It was the summer of 1976, you know, which we still talk about. For those of you that aren't in England, that's quite a shock, isn't it? That we're talking about a summer 50 years ago, because that was the last time it was hot. Brotherhood of Man won the Eurovision Song Contest. The Cod War with Iceland, the first commercial Concorde flight. John Curry won gold in figure skating.
Figure skating, yeah.
The Intercity 125 goes into service. Inflation at 16.5% average, peaking at 24%.
Crikey.
Yeah. James Hunt, F1 champion. A sad death. Sid James dies on stage, and the audience think it's part of the show, so they're all laughing, and he's dead on the stage.
Oui.
But yeah, a very different time.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And also pretty much a different time for Joni Mitchell because, well, since we last said, this is our first revisit to an artist. So this is a big deal. This is our first revisit to an artist. When we did Blue, she was still locked very much into that verse, chorus, hook, verse, chorus, end.
Yeah.
Traditional song structure that everyone likes. By the time we get to Hejira, she has pretty much abandoned traditional musical structure.
As you said about her jazz influences coming to the fore at this point, it's much more free form, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. She said in an interview, when an interviewer asked her about why was there just change in direction, and she said, I realised from time to time the river of my music needs new tributaries. And so with Hejira, she tilted more towards a sort of jazz influenced sound. She found that, she says, I was known as a folk artist. She said, but I was going to jazz clubs and jazz festivals. And she said, I was like, hold on a minute. I'm gonna just fuse my love together with what I do, because I don't have to just be stuck in that mode. I'm not just the folk artist. So what happens when you bleed in and blend in a bit of jazz influence and sort of modern musical sort of like abstraction into the, you get this sound here, which is different, very different to Blue.
Yeah, and I think that here you get much more of a. I mean, with her early stuff, Big Yellow Taxi was a song about the environment and very much ahead of her time. But here you get a real sense of her maturity, but also her offbeatness as a person.
Oh, totally.
I mean, she wrote this over 3 trips, as you know. The third trip came when she travelled across America with 2 men, one of whom being a former lover from Australia, which already you're thinking, actually, this is pretty wacky for the 70s.
Yeah.
Trip inspired 6 of the songs. She then went back to California alone, driving through Florida and along the Gulf of Mexico. She traveled without a driver's license and stayed behind truckers, relying on their habit of signaling when the police were ahead of them. Consequently, she only drove in daylight hours. During some of her solo journeys, Mitchell donned a red wig, sunglasses, and told the varying strangers she met that her name was either Charlene Latimer or Joan Black. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a bit Bonnie and Clyde, isn't it?
It's absolutely, it's crazy. Yeah, absolutely. Lots of people at the time were saying that you know, that were into rock and jazz were saying that Blue was a bit too folky for them. But on this one, she had finished Hejira, recorded it, and went along to a jazz exhibition, and Weather Report were playing, and she was like, "That bass player is phenomenal. I need to speak with him." And I'm gonna later. What would happen was that she would go back to the studio and get the sound engineers to remove some of the bass tracks from it and get this young chap to overdub and overlay his fretless bass, amazing improv style sound. And that young man was the phenomenal, and you've nicked his name today, Jaco Pastorius.
Did you see the anecdote when he introduced himself? As was his habit, he introduced himself by saying, "I'm John Francis Pastorius III. I'm the greatest bass player in the world." Which is you have to admire somebody's self-confidence, don't you, if they can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is her 8th studio album. By this point, she's 33 years old. And pretty much from 1967, I think it was, to this album in 1976, she did an album pretty much every year. 19 albums, studio albums in her life. This was the middle album.
But that's the killer, isn't it? So you see loads of great artists who, from the age of 15 onwards, are writing and performing their songs in their bedroom, and so they've got a huge back catalogue of stuff that they can wheel out for that first album. But then when they have to do a second album, and a third album, and a fourth album, and a fifth album, that's when you sort the wheat from the chaff, isn't it?
Very much so. She said in a quote in an interview, I love this. She said, "I suppose a lot of people could have written a lot of my other songs, but I feel the songs on Hejira could only have come from me." Of all of her work, that was after the 19 albums. So this was a special thing. This was a special baby. This was a really, really special thing. Just getting back to the... I've got some stats. Do you want some stats?
No. I really don't this time.
Sorry, we don't want them. This, as you rightly said, this is the 8th studio album from Joni Mitchell. The songs were written during that series of road trips in 75, 76 and reflect on events during those trips, including several dalliances that she had along the way. Characterised by dense, sprawling songs, as well as the overdub fretless bass from Jacko, whom Mitchell had just met, Hejira continued the musician's journey beyond her pop records into this freer, jazz-inspired, free-form kind of flow. She had travelled, and she brought a lot of the experiences travelling with Bob Dylan's Thunder Review Tour. The album didn't sell as well as predecessors, peaking at number 22 in her native Canada. It reached number 13 on the Billboard 200 pop album charts in the United States, where it was certified by the RIAA, and number 11 in the UK, where it attained silver certification. Critically, the album was well received, and years since, Hejira has been considered one of the high marks of her career. The album title comes from the origin Arabic word. I think it's... Let me just see. I think it's... I don't think it's got a J right in the middle of it. I think it's got a G in the middle, like Hejira, obviously not pronounced like that in Arabic, right, which means to rupture. It means a departure as well. And she liked that word, so she liked the idea that it summed up running away with honour, that departure. The cover art actually won awards as well. It was a pretty well... she said it took a lot of time and a lot of work went into the cover. It's quite an interesting cover. She looks really striking on the front. And then we're into it. Personnel: Joni Mitchell, Chuck Finley and Tom Scott on horns, Abby Most on clarinet, Neil Young comes in on Furry Sings the Blues with the harmonica, Victor Feldman on vibraphone, Larry Carlton, Jaco Pastorius, and a range of other great musicians on this album. Superb. Shall we start? And you've made a special request that we jump one song for a reason. You haven't told me why.
I have. Yeah, well,
right, okay.
You'll see why.
So the album opens, and we do. You said last week if you love this album, great. If you don't know it, like we ask you to do every week, go away, get the album, have a listen. You can join in with the chat. Madeline Gray, I used to annoy your dad by saying, "Never mind all that. Where's Maddie?" I had to give it up. I started to feel so cruel. Oh, when you're playing your guitar on your guitar video.
Yeah.
Right. So we open with this.
No regrets, Coyote. We just come from such different sets of circumstance. I'm up all night in the studios and you're up early on your ranch. You'll be brushing up the broodmare's tail while the sun is ascending, and I'll just be getting on with my real career. So complicated. Just how close to the bone and the skin and the eyes and the lips you can get. Still feel so alone and still feel related, like stations in in some relay, you're not a hit and run driver, no. Racing away, you just picked up a hitcher, cruised around the white lines on the freeway.
Dreamy.
Yeah, it's an interesting, upbeat, jolly little number. Well, musically a jolly little number. Lyrically, a little bit more kind of dark. But the thing that strikes me at various points during this album, as I mentioned to you, is that this came out the same time as the record label Windham Hill was launched, where a very talented guitarist called Will Ackerman decided that he wanted high quality recordings of himself and other people. And they went round and they hired a bunch of truly outstanding instrumentalists, including Michael Hedges, who is arguably the best guitarist ever, well, best steel string guitarist ever.
Right.
And Andrew York, who is arguably the best nylon strum guitarist, like a latter-day Segovia classical guitarist. And these guys recorded on the album, and it was very, very cutting edge, both in terms of recording quality and that sort of new age sort of sound. But it's clear, listening to this album, that, you know, this came out in 76. These guys are listening to it going, that's a good idea. I think we'll do a bit of that. So over the following decade, loads of stuff came out that was clearly incredibly heavily influenced by what's going on in this album.
Incredible. Yeah, genius, without a doubt. There's been some writings about how this is possibly about a truck driver. She sees herself as the hitcher. She's put herself in a story. No one knows if it's true or not, but could have been a part of that whole dressing up kind of thing and hitching and driving and all of that. And that he's having these kind of affairs while he's on the road, and he has to make a decision what he's going to do, if he's going to have to stand and fight or take off out of here, running away from a situation, going back to a wife potentially. Talks about being a prisoner on the white lines of the freeway, because he's locked into that for a kind of role. So and the Coyote is pretty much this sort of predator type guy who preys on, I don't think it's a violent thing, but I think he's talking about preying on women, women.
Well, she talks about how he pins her in the corner. I don't mean to think that's physically holding her arms up, but I think, you know, it's maneuvering her into the corner and not taking no for an answer. Yeah. Which obviously, particularly the way the world is at the moment, and these things that are being exposed, you know, that's kind of nasty. But I'm sure that lots of her recording will have had elements of that going on in it, won't it?
Oh yeah, without a doubt, 100%, absolutely.
Young woman, and lots of recording engineers that, you know, will make it big if you come home with me tonight.
Yeah, very much so. My goodness me. So the lyrics of a presumed affair on one of the stops along her travels, and we know from listening to Madame Mitchell's music before, she plays it as she sees it, right?
Very much so.
If Joni Mitchell looks down and there's a crack in her boot, you're going to hear about it in the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's going to be expressed through sort of, you know, poetic virtuosity. It's very clever. So it's a great start to the song, and it's got that kind of like chugging sound to it. Again, Joni Mitchell's famous for the fact that she tuned her guitar the way she liked to tune it. She wasn't bound by traditional guitar tunings. In fact, many session musicians that came to join her were like, "What key is this in?" And she's like, "No, it's not going to work like that, I'm afraid. It's in this key." And work it out.
Well, she, for Christmas, we bought Madeleine a book of Joni's art, and it tells kind of the story of this. And I was going to get a companion book to go with that, which is all of the transcription of her tunings and right. pieces. And I think she used like over 100 different tunings.
Oh my goodness.
And it was interesting, actually, and we might have said this last time, that she had polio when she was a child, which weakened her hand. So she does lots of kind of straight bar chords just with a couple of fingers down, rather than kind of difficult fingerings. But it does create this opportunity for some fantastic voicings, you know, where you've got two fingers down and lots of open strings. And you see that again and again in her music, you know, that really ringing guitar part.
Now, one of the things I find amazing about watching her live, especially if you watch, well, we're going to come back to it. The next track is Amelia, but you don't want us to dive into that just now. You want us to hold
No,
that
I'd
to
like
the
like
end.
to
Okay,
leave
that's
that.
fine.
Yeah.
But you sent me a lovely YouTube clip of her playing that live, which we'll put in the chat. In fact, I'll do it while we're chatting. And it's incredible for me. It won't be incredible for you, but the whole thing about so here's the thing. I mess around with guitars. I've got guitars lying about everywhere. I'm not a guitar player. I mess about with guitars, but I've got this weird thing. So I'm strumming the guitar. When I go to sing, my hands stop. Right? So I'm watching her singing Amelia and giving it all that expression and emotion. But I'm also looking at the fact that although it's quite simplistic with her bar chords and all that in her left hand, in her right hand she's doing some quite complex finger picking,
Absolutely
but
right.
just
Yeah.
with her hand just balanced over the top of
Yeah.
this
Just
guitar and not looking at
yeah.
it. It's like,
Yeah.
but she's also playing and picking those with her nails like a bass player would, almost like bass player positioning with her hands, just sort of cradled over. Quite incredible to watch. We'll put that in the chat. So we're going to jump over Amelia and we're going to go to a really interesting, spiky little song called "Furry Sings the Blues." Love the way the music comes in here, just like a blanket. The drums.
Old Field Street is coming down. Sweetie snapped by, brought it up now. And there goes the tailor, and the shine boy's gone. Faded out with ragtime blues. And he's cast in bronze, and he's standing in a little park with his trumpet in his hand, like he's listening back
Neil Young.
to the good old bands and the click of high-heeled shoes. Old Furry sings the blues, propped up in his bed with his dentures and his leg removed.
That's just a fantastic line, isn't it? Propped up in his bed with his dentures and his leg removed.
Yeah, quite incredible. The guitarist in the band, one of the musicians in the band, Rick Danko, tells a story about sitting round at Furry's on this road trip, jamming with him, and the surrealistic scene that it presented in front. And obviously, Joni was taking copious notes from this. Joni was there, but quite a dark background to this story. And Furry Sings the Blues, probably the most controversial song on the album, because it directly references the style and the life of the old bluesman Furry Lewis. They had met the year before on this trip in Memphis. She wrote this song about him, and it's actually quite scathing about him, that he's a bit carnaptuous and a bit of an old curmudgeon, and that his songs are kind of like, she says that there's a line in there which she says, it's just a bit kind of vaudeville. It's a bit kind of, there was one or two good songs, but the rest of it was basically pretty crap. And she has a real go.
But Old Furry Sings the Blues, he points a bony finger at you and says, "I don't like you." Everybody laughs as if it's the old man's standard joke. It's so clearly he said to her, "I don't like you." And she's thought, right, screw you. I'll show you now. And the fact remains that no one's heard of him and everyone's heard of her.
Yeah, Old Furry Sings the Blues. You bring him smoke and drink and he'll play for you. It's mostly muttering now and sideshow spiel. But there was one song he played that I could really feel. I mean, God. How do you do it? How do you do it? That's just incredible. She also, there's been a lot of record on the internet about the fact that people get quite maudlin about old Memphis when they hear this, because she's accurately talking about streets, Beale Street, and how it's pawn shops glitter like gold tooth caps in the grey decay. You and I might say, a lot of pawn shops here, eh?
Yeah.
A lot of pawn shops here on this street. Pawn shops glitter like gold tooth caps in the grey decay. They chew the last few dollars off old Beale Street's carcass. They chew the last few dollars off old Beale Street's carcass. Come on, for goodness
Again,
sake.
it's just so poetic, isn't it? I think often Leonard Cohen is kind of referenced as the poet songwriter, and he's had his lyrics published in books of poetry. Subsequently, obviously, Bob Dylan has as well. But this is another level, isn't it? I think in terms of
I think so.
how she paints the picture.
I've never seen anything like it. I've never experienced anything like it. Yeah, okay, you get Dylan and all that, and it's poetry, but there's something about listening to Joni Mitchell that, I mean, she puts you in the room. She
Yeah.
puts you in the room. You get the olfactory sense of being in the room with her. When she talks about cigarette smoking, coffee, and Jack Daniels, you can smell it. You can feel.
But actually, not only are you in the room, you're in the room seeing it through her eyes. And I think that autobiographical nature of it is the thing that's so lovely when she talks about walking down the street, or that at the start of that song when she's talking about how Sweetie Snack Bar is all boarded up now, and Eagles the Tailor and the Shine Boy's gone, faded out with Ragtime Blues. Handy's cast in bronze and he's standing in a little park. You can kind of you're looking left and right with her, aren't you, as you walk down the street?
Because you're moving with her right through her eyes. Yeah, absolutely. It's like she's taking musical photographs for you. Quite incredible, and she does this like no one else on the planet. Jimmy Page said, as an artist, you're trying to always get it right, and you stumble and you fall and all that. He said, apart from one artist in the world, and that's Joni Mitchell, who always gets it right. That's and dark cafes.
Yeah.
Oh, there are plenty. There are plenty of dark cafes and coffee shops in here. I think she spent most of her life in them, and there's a belter where she says, sitting in some dark cafe. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of her little kind of motifs, isn't it? Is the fact that she'll, at some point in that journey, we're going for a cup of coffee.
Yeah, so we had was it David Crosby? That she had a bit of a relationship with David Crosby, and he showed her kind of some open chords and stuff on the guitar, and off she went and kind of incorporated those. And he said, and within a year, she was kind of like away and over the horizon in terms of not just her playing, but her kind of creativity. Just outstanding.
Yeah, very, very much so. Very much so. I'm going to take us into the next track now. But I do like, I mean, I actually hadn't really picked up on any kind of like bitterness or any kind of like aggression in it, but it's quite a prickly little song when you read the lyrics. She's definitely having a go. So much so that he wrote a letter to the record company and demanded that his name Furry be taken off future pressings of the album, and took them to court to try and get royalties.
Oh wow.
Absolutely. Took them to court to try and get royalties, but it fell through, and he never had enough money to follow it through. And it got quite horrible. He despised the song and decried the unauthorized use of his name, at one point demanding to be paid royalties and issuing court proceedings, which I think just fell away to one side. He despised the song. He despised the song because she paints quite an ugly picture of you, old chap.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that so she is. I think that she's unusual. She obviously has a magical effect on men, and you look at the people that she's had a romantic connection to over the years, and it reads like a who's who of big hitters in the music industry, and all of them, from what I see, all of them are heartbroken when she moves on, and she doesn't see that there's anything wrong with that. We're together, we have a good time together, I move on and find somebody else to have a good time with, and you're left as a kind of weeping heap in the corner of the room,
crushed.
But I don't think in any of the things that she's written there's particularly been any vindictiveness. It's just very factual. This is how this is how I feel. I'm not being spiteful. It's just, this is how I am. Your music isn't very good.
Yeah, I mean, look at the start of Coyote. No regrets, Coyote. We just come from different sets of circumstances. I'm up all night in the studio. You're up early on your ranch. It isn't going to work, but it's been great. But it's been great, right? Let's just crack on and just go.
Let's not.
No, you were the most amazing thing I've ever had. And then we're into a song that drives me up the wall with excitement every time I hear it. I feel so. This is my proposal writing song. This is my proposal writing. So from here on, there's A Strange Boy and Song for Sharon. I'll just play on a loop. I've got them pulled out and just on a little playlist. And maybe I'm on a scale, but I will sit and I'll realise that they've just played from 8 a.m. till 2 p.m. continuously these two songs.
I can. That's so relatable, because I do
Yeah,
that with songs. When I play the song almost to destruction.
Yeah, to destruction. Absolutely. Yeah. So much so that these next two songs feel, well, there's A Strange Boy, then there's Hejira, then there's Song for Sharon. But A Strange Boy and Song for Sharon feel like part of my DNA. Life wouldn't be the same without them.
Interesting comment from Chris here. Joni was never someone who wanted to be tied down after the disaster of her first marriage before she was famous. Yeah.
Right. So it just kept her sort of free and loose and more sort of temporary with her relationships, right? Yeah. Okay. So we move into, when I hear these chords, and it's a wonderful thing to do, is type in A Strange Boy covers into YouTube and hear all the wonderful artists say, A Strange Boy is weaving a course of grace and havoc on a yellow skateboard, and hear all different artists singing their version of this song in different styles, some rock, some pop, some country. It is fabulous. The opening
I will do exactly that.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. The opening line in this song, shivers down my spine.
A strange boy is weaving a course of grace and havoc on a yellow skateboard to midday sidewalk traffic. Just when I think he's foolish and childish, and I wanted to be manly, I catch my fool and my child, needing love and understanding. What a strange, strange boy. He still lives with his family, even the war and the Navy couldn't bring him to maturity. He keeps referring back to school days and clinging to his child.
I think the way that she harmonizes both with the guitar and with Jacko on the bass, the melody is really interesting because it doesn't go necessarily harmonize in the way that you think it's going to.
No,
and I love the fact that there's lots of kind of aha moments during.
Yes, very much so. You get that. Yeah, you get the where she shouts, "Grow up!" She shouts it, "Grow up!" I cried, and she actually shouts it. We got high on travel, we got drunk on alcohol, and on love, the strongest poison and medicine of all. She pulls these like stars from the sky and studs them into her music. Just absolutely incredible. As Jimmy Page said, there's only one person that gets it all right all the time, and it's her. I love this song. Do you know what? I didn't even look up what this one's about because I don't care.
Yeah, it is a bit like that, and as I said to you kind of before we went live, normally I would go and I would read all of the song meanings type websites to get a bit of it. Actually, who cares?
Who cares? Who cares? Exactly. What a strange boy. Still lives with his family. Even the war in the Navy couldn't bring him to maturity.
So what I did see on Wiki about this was a strange boy recounts the affair that Mitchell had with one of the men she was traveling with from Los Angeles to Maine. He was a flight attendant in his 30s who still lived with his parents.
Ooh.
And yeah, it's just so her life is so interesting, isn't it? Very much a free spirit, this traveling and hopping from friendship to friendship and relationship to relationship without any embarrassment or shame about her behavior. She is herself, and you either take it or leave it.
I love that line. Grow up, I cried, because clearly he's quite a childlike person if he's in his 30s and he's scooting about on a skateboard through midday sidewalk traffic. Grow up, I cried. And as the smoke was clearing, he said, give me one good reason why. And it's the way she says, give me one good reason why. Yeah. It's just like, it's like glasses smashing all over the place. For me, If you haven't heard it before, get a hold of Hejira. Listen to it all, but my God, sit down and properly tune into A Strange Boy. It is magical. Magical.
I was the same for the first couple of listens of this album, Chris. Just let it wash over me and enjoy the texture of the sound.
Yeah, absolutely. We've torn lots of albums apart in a good way and sort of dissected them and discussed every sort of like minute part. But it almost feels like a bit of an insult to do this with us. It would be like just daubing your finger into a Michelin star dish and going, "No, that tastes all right, doesn't it?"
Yeah. I'll have 3 of those.
3 of them. Yeah, exactly. Can I have sauce with it? Do you got tomato sauce?
We do need to move on though, because we've only done 3 songs.
What?
And we're 35 minutes in.
Oh, crikey. Right, okay. So the title track, the next one, Hejira, perhaps the best example of a phenomenal soundscape. It features amazing clarinet by Abbey Most, more wild bass motifs from Pastorius, and a really cool picked electric riff, which gives the feeling of travelling. You get a feeling of progress and travel and movement.
And
guess where she is in the second line of it. Guess where she is. Guess where she might be in the second line of this. Sitting in some cafe, perhaps?
I'm traveling in some vehicle. I'm sitting in some cafe. I defected from the petty wars that shall shock away. There's comfort in melancholy.
Quite a sad song about a relationship which is quite toxic. She's sitting in some cafe, a defector from the petty wars, meaning she's got away from the arguments for a little while. It gets a little bit more brighter throughout. You know, she talks about snow gathering like bolts of lace. She talks about possessive coupling. So much could not be expressed. But right at the end, in true Joni style, she just whacks a big load of like upset towards us and says, even with her defection from love's petty wars, eventually they'll suck her back into more of the same. I'm sitting in some vehicle, a defector from the petty wars, until love sucks me back that way.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the high points of the album for me. This song, I love the texture of the introduction. It is absolutely that Windham Hill spoddy, ultra recorded, ultra perfect kind of sound. Just breathtaking.
Oh, 100%. 100%. She's on record. No Joni, no Alanis. And it also seems no Joni, no Sheryl Crow.
As we'll see in a moment.
As we'll see in a moment, yeah, absolutely. When we had, we'll leave some space definitely at the end for that. That was excellent. Quite sad that she's locked in a possessive coupling, and right at the end says, "I've basically managed to get away from it for a little while, but it's gonna suck me back in." A beautiful song, and a beautiful clarinet solo from Abbey Most as well, which you wouldn't think that this song has got space for a clarinet solo, but it works.
Yeah,
it works so much. Absolutely.
Well, it's that jazz, the jazz instruments that's starting to come to the fore, isn't it? That becomes such a large part of her life later on.
Very much so. For me, the next one that we're about to play, as I say, this is the blood in my veins. This song, this is a song for Sharon, an epic 9 minutes. I mean, looking at the lyrics in this is quite incredible. It's like 3 pages worth of lyrics.
Yeah.
Where she takes us a story one morning where she decides to go to Staten Island, to the Mandolin Brothers mandolin shop, famous in Staten Island, to buy herself a mandolin, and she takes us. And just listen out for these little cues about what Joni Mitchell does beautifully. You and I, we're going to buy a mandolin. We step off the ferry and we walk past a superstore, which has got a wedding dress in the window. I went to Staten Island to buy myself a mandolin, and I saw the long white dress of love on a store white mannequin. Some girl's going to see that dress and crave that day like crazy. You and I would probably say, We probably wouldn't notice the wedding dress, let's be honest.
No, well, in fact, I wouldn't be going on that particular pilgrimage anyway, would I? You know, I wouldn't cross the street to be given a mandolin,
Right.
let alone go to Staten Island to buy a mandolin.
Right, fair enough. That's a good point. She's a story singer, Tiba. She's a story singer, absolutely. So this is The Blood in My Veins. I adore this piece of music.
I went to Staten Island, Sharon, to buy myself a mandolin. And I saw the long white dress of love on a storefront mannequin. Big boat trucking back with a belly full of cars, all for something lacy. Some girl's gonna see that dress and crave that feel like crazy.
It's an interesting line here. Little Indian kids on a bridge up in Canada, they can balance and they can climb. Like their fathers before them, they'll walk the girders of the Manhattan skyline. It's a lovely little bit of history that the white workers, when they were building the bridge, got vertigo and couldn't build the high skyscrapers of New York and the bridges. So they got Native American workers from Canada who were completely zen at height. Yeah. Completely zen. And they came to work as builders because they could keep the balance and keep a level head, according to the internet. This song is incredible. A lot of people on the internet give it a bit of a bad rap because she's quoted as saying years later, when asked in an interview about her drugs experience, she said, "Oh, I wrote some of my best stuff on cocaine. I'm quite proud of it." And notably, song for Sharon. She was as high as a kite when she wrote this song. Yeah. I'm not particularly bothered because it's brilliant.
Yeah, no, me neither.
I don't care. Take more cooking. No, that's terrible. That's dreadful.
The Indian kids on a bridge up in Canada, they can balance and they can climb. Like their fathers before them, they'll walk the girders of the Manhattan skyline. Shine your light on me, Miss Liberty.
I might put this in if there was ever a competition taking nominations for the best piece of music ever written. I'd put it up there. I'd chuck it in. One of the best pieces of music ever written. I adore this piece of music.
It is very good.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Right, cracking on into Black Crow. In fact, do you want to play the start of Black Crow, Adam?
Well, you can play the start of Black Crow and then just pause.
Right, I will. Okay, so just the start, right? Here we go, Black Crow. So let's do that again. So what's your point?
My point is this.
Well, that's just the same song slowed down.
It is exactly the same.
Is it again? Oh, it's naughty.
So I think we can safely say, and we identified this, I think, during Blue, that Sheryl Crow is obviously very heavily influenced by Joni Mitchell. In fact, Sheryl Crow is in this particular song, is very influenced by Black Crow, the song that she has just, she's Oasis'd it, basically, hasn't she?
One day we're going to do an Oasis album. We have to.
Yeah, of course we will. Of course.
So Black Crow, Pastorius comes back in this one. A faster-paced, tension-filled song accented by electric overtones. I like the way she dives down like a crow with this big opener, then down into the lyrics.
There and ragged, treated me. He's black as the highway that's leading me. Now he's diving down to pick up on something shiny. I feel like that black crow flying in a blue sky.
Swirling. Yeah. The stories, again, the stories. She just puts you right in the moment, giving you that bird's eye view in this one. Terrific. Absolutely terrific.
I think one of the things that is so phenomenal about her is that she goes into the recording studio and she records this stuff, and what comes out is breathtakingly good. And then you go onto YouTube and you watch her doing a live performance of this, whether or not it's Big Yellow Taxi when she was really young, or it's Amelia, or it's whatever, and the live performance is better than what comes out of the studio. And I think that that's the mark of a true performer. You know, I'm not saying that this isn't good. I'm not saying that I could do better. I'm not saying that anybody necessarily could do better. But what I'm saying is that she can do better. And when she gets in front of an audience, she has a way of engaging that audience, which is quite magical.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And she's never. I actually don't like it when artists mess about too much with songs, especially the ones you love. There's nothing worse than going to see a concert and they go, "Hey, this is going to be just an a cappella version of our biggest hit."
Because I paid £150 for a ticket to hear you perform something that you haven't rehearsed properly.
Yeah, absolutely. But she tweaks her songs. She tweaks a little nuance, a little way that she pronounces a word. On the song that we're going to hear that we should have played, that we're going to hear that you've put the link to, the way she just tweaks and messes with that and personalizes it a little bit. You know, she's grown with the song, so she performs it in a slightly different way. She's grown with it. I think it's just genius, right?
Yeah.
Just genius. So, getting into a completely sort of like stage left blue motel room, complete turn towards nightclub style, leaning on the piano, slow bluesy.
I've got a blue motel room with a blue bedspread. I've got the blues inside and outside my head. Will you still love me when I call you up when I'm down? Here's a pouring rain.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? I mean, you could fall asleep to this.
Oh, beautiful! Absolutely, it's a very sleepy, like the little lazy, the brushes on the We're here all week. Try the veal.
Exactly.
Martinis, £3.50 at the bar. Oh, right. I didn't know that. Shadows and Light, one of the greatest live albums. Right, I will be going on to get that. Thank you so much, Chris. That is brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. More versions of these brilliant songs? Absolutely. Let's do that. And then we come to the last track on the album, which is Refuge of the Roads. More fantastic fretless bass from Pastorius. Some would say this song's not as strong as the others, kind of breaks off and whimpers a little bit with distant bass line flourishes. Still a bloody good song. Refuge of the Roads. Yeah, good point, Chris. Good point.
I met a friend of spirit. He drank and womanized. Then I sat before his sanity. I was holding back from crying.
Pure Joni Mitchell, right?
Yeah, the way she delivers the vocal is absolutely her.
Yeah.
He mirrored me back simplified, and we laughed how our perfection would always be denied.
It's a brilliant song. Brilliant.
Heart and humor and humility, pieces will lighten up your heavy load. I left in them for the refuge of the roads.
Come on. Let's just hear Jacko.
I fell in with some drifters.
Fell in with some drifters might actually be one of the strongest themes of our life, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fell in with some drifters. I had my what's the dulcimer on my back in a rucksack, and I fell in with some drifters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it says that this was written about a 3-day visit that she had to the controversial Buddhist meditation master Chogyam Trungpa in Colorado on her way back to Los Angeles. According to Mitchell, it was during this visit in early '76 that Trungpa cured her of her cocaine addiction.
Wow.
And that would be why it's not so strong, because she's lost the impetus from having loads of drugs. I'm teasing. What's interesting, though, I think about this is that when you listen to that, there are lots of different styles going on. There's the kind of the slidey bass bit going on. There's that kind of cheerful melody as it sort of crescendos towards the end of the phrase. And often there are lots of bits in here that you think, oh, that sounds just like such and such. And of course it doesn't. Such and such sounds just like
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think clearly to people like Pastorius, it wasn't a problem because he's an alien himself with music. But imagine being a session musician walking into the studio with that. The way that she decides how words are going to be said and phrased, and she'll pull them across bars and upside down and flip. Just a master of her trade. We said when we were doing Up Us by Peter Gabriel, that we had a joke. None of us are particularly religious, but Peter Gabriel might be God.
He's clearly not, is he?
Clearly not. He's clearly not. But when whatever happens with this world, when the skies break and the ship comes down and they say, "Who are your elders?" We should put Joni forward. Let Joni speak for us.
Yeah.
When Joni speaks, they and says, "I don't like what this guy said on Spotify. Take all my music down, please." Spotify, do it, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Rightly or wrongly. So that is Refuge of the Roads. Quite a short album, only 9 tracks, but we missed one.
We did.
We did miss one. Now, keeping in mind that for those who maybe joined a bit later, Adam's had a bit of an epiphany with this record, and I think maybe can I play it?
Please.
Second track is Amelia.
I was driving across the burning desert when I spotted 6 jet planes, leaving 6 white vapor trails across the bleak terrain. It was the hexagram of the heavens, it was the strings of my guitar. Amelia, it was just a false alarm. The drone of flying engines is a song so wide and blue. It scrambles time and seasons if it gets through to you. Then your life becomes a travelogue with picture postcard charms. Oh, Amelia, it was just a fall
It feels awkward turning the volume down on this song. A masterpiece. So why did you ask us to keep this to the end?
Because and there are 3 albums where we've done this. One of them was AM, Acoustic Monkeys, and one of them was one that you couldn't do, which was Brothers
Dire
in
Straits.
Arms.
Brothers in
Yeah.
Arms,
Where those two, and I think this song on this album is so a good album. This, unlike the Brothers in Arms album, a good album, a brilliant album. But this song is so much better than anything else. This is one of the best songs that I have ever heard in my entire life. It is, yeah, it is. It is perfect. It is perfect. There is a little bit of intro, and she gets into the story and the lyrics. I was driving across the burning desert when I spotted 6 jet planes, leaving 6 white vapor trails across the bleak terrain. Like the hexagram of the heavens, like the strings of my guitar. Amelia, it was just, it's just like, oh my God, how do you weave a story that is so powerful with so few words? There was hang on, a ghost of aviation. She was swallowed by the sky or by the sea. Like me, she had a dream to fly. Like Icarus ascending on beautiful, foolish arms. Amelia, it was just a false. I mean, it's just perfect. Maybe I've never really loved. I guess that is the truth. I've spent my whole life in clouds at icy altitudes, and looking down on everything, I crashed into Liz's arms. It just, you could not write better lyrics than that.
No, you couldn't. You couldn't. I pulled into
mesmeric melody, just everything about it. The mix, the melody, the harmonies, the lyrics. It is as close to perfect. And whether or not you rate this song that I'm about to mention, but there's only one song which has been heralded as being the perfect song, and that is "Help" by the Beatles, because it exhibits every trait it needs to. It tells a good story. It's everything about it is right, and this same thing. Could not be better.
And delivered beautifully. I think you've put the link to the live performance, which is gorgeous.
Yeah, and sorry, go on.
No, but there's a beautiful guitar solo by Pat Metheny in there, which doesn't particularly float your boat, but it's worth listening to. And there's a really cool moment where she just turns around, sways for a little bit, looking at him playing her guitar, and then just walks off the stage and just lets him get on with it. One of her best songs ever. Absolutely killer lyrics, talking about love, more specifically the loss of the greatest love of her life. Telling herself that it was just a false alarm, or simply saying that all her loves were just false alarms. Comparing herself, maybe looking through, making a comparison with her and Amelia Earhart. Is it Earhart? Earhart. I keep saying Earhart. Her dream to fly was her dream to love. Talks about her loneliness. Telling the mythical pilot of her own. I pulled into the Cactus Tree Motel to shout off the dust. I slept on the strange pillows of my wanderlust. I dreamed of 747s over geometric farms. Dreams, Amelia, dreams and false alarms.
I mean, it just, honestly, when I'm listening to this, I find it quite difficult to speak because it's so moving.
Oh! I think
my work here is done, says Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. What should we do? Right Side Fred next week?
Yeah.
Fabulous. What a week. Actually, normally for these weeks it's small legs. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we should qualify that this is definitely a brilliant album. Timothy Hughes is giving me a hard time, for people who don't know, because I put out a video this week, a nice video. It took ages to make sure all the text was perfectly done in this. I put the word qualified at the top, which is the headline. It's not even like a flash up caption. The headline, and I wrote qualified. So people started commenting on small eggs and things like that. this wasn't a change for me, apart from the fact that I had to do a bit of statistics digging and all of that, because I played this as much as I normally play it. It's on every day, pretty much, in my house. There's something interesting factoid. Mrs. Doyle hasn't appeared in this one because she can't stand it.
Well, I think you need to handcuff her to a radiator or something and play this track on repeat. You know, she needs to.
Yeah.
She needs to embrace. It is the most phenomenal. It's a. I often think that, you know, because as you get to our age, you sort of learn a bit about yourself.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, musically, I'm quite old-fashioned. You know, I know what I like and I like what I know, and I'm
really
quite happy to explore that stuff. And you know, as you know, Joni is one of those artists that I'm very aware of. I would never ever put myself as a big fan. I really enjoyed When We Did Blue, and because that ticked a lot of boxes of the sort of folky, bluesy kind of very sparse acoustic music that I love so much. And then this is like I said to you, an absolute epiphany for me. It's incredible, and I think that this has opened the door to her later albums for me. I said that to you during the week that I had been listening to Mingus as well, one of her much later albums.
79,
yeah. Just the full enormity of her talent has finally landed with me.
Right.
And I feel embarrassed that I didn't spot it before in many ways.
Yeah, very much. It's been a joy. It's been fantastic. I'll turn the volume down on this, but I'll put it up at the end and we'll have a few seconds just playing it out. But any ideas what you'd like to do next week? It's your choice this week. Next week. Do you have an idea? Trump this, Adam Gray. Trump this.
Okay, well, this is the last show we're ever doing, so thank you all very much.
It's been great.
And it's not meant to be in competition with this, but interestingly, this album I didn't discover until later on. I remember that at the Brit Awards, this album won basically everything. It cleared the table at the Brit Awards, and I'd not really heard it because I was at music college playing Beethoven and Mozart. And I thought, I know I'm not going to like that band because of the stupid name. And then later, I discovered the music and thought, actually, I see why this cleared the table at the Brits. And that is... no, not actually Radiohead. Fine Young Cannibals, The Raw and the Cooked. Their debut album, which is very catchy. Now, I'm deliberately saying it's catchy rather than because I'm not massively familiar with it, but I do remember that it's quite a good listen, quite a good drive album.
Yeah, I think so.
But it will be. I can't imagine that I should be welling up whilst playing it.
And we don't have to. We don't have to eat Michelin star food every day. Sometimes you just want a cheese sandwich, right? And everything in between. I think that was Kajagoogoo, old friend.
Hush, hush.
Yeah. So She Drives Me Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Not too familiar with them. Looking forward to giving that one a go in a proper ring round. This has been,
Griff, that Christmas artist.
That's what happens. That's what it's called when you give someone an 80s keyboard as a present for Christmas.
Baboons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice work.
This has been great. I'm gonna enjoy the evening, knowing that something magical happened here. There was a little improvement of a situation. I love that. This has been great. Thank you.
It has. Thank you so much, and thank you for forcing this album on me.
Yeah.
Because I never would have listened to it. If you'd have said, it's a really great album, you should listen to this, I wouldn't ever have done so. So thank you. This has been beautiful.
We got it right. Excellent.
We did.
We just let this play for a few seconds.
Burning desert, when I spotted 6 jet planes, leaving 6 white vapor trails across the bleak terrain.
Will that do us? I think so,
It was the hexagram.
Bye, everybody. Have a lovely weekend. Thank you.
It was the strings of my